Okay. Who's got a question or a struggle? Maybe you can't phrase it as a question. Who's got a struggle? I mean, you're here for a reason, right? Luke, shoot.
Uh, it's hard to sum it up, but probably how to transfer your not transfer your personal training business to online, but in terms of like how to build as successful online business as in person.
Mm.
And like kind of just steps to do it because I feel like in person I'm very confident. Um, and it's going really well, but with online, I that's where I struggle.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of coaches are somewhat similar. So I think a starting place with this is a lot of advice will come in the sense that you just need to commit hard to the online side of things and slowly drop your PT. I would personally say, and this is just the way I did it, that there is going to be a period of time where you're spinning both plates at the same time, right? And it feels very busy, but that's probably right. In terms of a transition, you shouldn't just go, right, I'm going to drop half my PT so I can commit online because that's why it becomes so stressful. You essentially drop all your security and safety. And as we know as coaches, when you're operating from a place of scarcity and fear, you actually end up doing worse most of the time. So I would say, and this is the way I did it, was obviously for me, the transition online happened when me and Loz were traveling. So when I wanted to travel full time and I left M10, I purposefully built my online at that point. And I built it to a point that it would just cover most of my personal training income that I would lose. So that when I transitioned, there wasn't this huge like roller coaster of income, emotion, etc. The unfortunate part is that that leads to a period of time where you feel like you're working a hell of a lot because you're technically running two quite full rosters, right? But in my opinion, I think that's necessary. I think it's a good time I think it's one of the most relevant times to really work yourself hard, basically. So that's what I would advise. Now, how you start that is just about understanding what you can carry over and what is different from an online perspective compared to PT, because I'm sure a lot of the online coaches here can vouch for it. Like there is still a lot of similarities with online coaching and personal training. They are different endeavors. Like the way you communicate with the client is slightly different, but inherently they are somewhat very similar. And actually, if I was to go back on the gym floor, there's a lot that I would take from online that I would introduce to my PT clients a lot more, right? So like the data collection, the check-ins, etc. Like we just, in person, I just did personal training check-ins. I just checked in with them in person most of the time. We still did data collection, obviously. So there's that side of things from an online perspective. What are the differences? That's really what you need to know so that you can conduct yourself according to that and not just trying to replicate PT online completely. So the main differences are obviously you're not working on a gym floor, so there is some form of digital marketing that you need to get quite good at, right? Whereas obviously in a gym, there's personal trainers that focus on Instagram, and I have no idea why because you're a PT, right? Your gym floor is essentially your marketing source, so you don't really need to be online. But obviously, when you are online, you've not got gym floor, so that is going to be something you probably want to get quite proficient at. Yeah, and that's probably the biggest struggle that most coaches deal with is marketing themselves digitally, marketing themselves online, finding a consistent message, market niche, etc. How to create some form of ecosystem. Those are the challenges that come with digital marketing, which is just a skill thing. Honestly, it's just a skill thing. Like as you get better at it, you'll find what works, what doesn't, what you need to be more skilled in, what you need to be better at, whether that's copywriting, whether that's content creation, etc., those kinds of things. So, A, don't just hard transition, drop your PT, move online. Like, try and run both and accept that you're going to be busier, but that's okay. Still take a lot of those personal training skills across. The people skills are going to be hugely relevant. The amount of face time you give your online clients, that kind of stuff. So when I started online coaching, a lot of my first initial online clients got weekly calls and a hell of a lot of contact time because I wasn't rammed. I wasn't super busy. So I had that time to kind of give away. As I got busier, I obviously slowly became more efficient with what I would need to do and what I couldn't afford to do anymore. But as you obviously know from a client base, like you still have access to calls whenever you need them or feel like you need them. And then finally, I would just say deciding what that vision is that you're trying to build towards, because I think there's a lot of online coaches I've spoken to recently that thought they wanted to go online and then they've ended up back on the gym floor because they realize it's not all it's cracked up to be, right? There has to be a very specific purpose why you're going online so that you're fulfilling the vision that you want to attain, and you're not just trying to chase something that's like the done thing, if that makes sense. Because I've spoken to a lot of coaches recently that have gone back to the gym floor because they feel like they were pursuing the wrong thing. And that's not to say online coaching is the wrong thing. It's right for a lot of people, right? It's just making sure it's right for you and what that looks like. Yeah, cool. Radu?
So, first of all, thank you, Jack, for giving me the opportunity to be here. Hello, guys. As you know, your mail when you spoke about leading efficiency, that's what caught my eye. So that's the main reason why I'm here to, I hope to share with us a little bit more in-depth information about that lead efficiency. And just for giving you some context, since I leave the CC Build 1.5 years ago, I'm constantly in between 15 and 20 clients. My goal is to be around 25, and once I'm very close to 20, someone drops and etc. So 1.5 years constantly between 15 and 20 clients. I delegate the DM part, the dirty job, to someone who I'm paying. And it doesn't bother me. I mean, lack of efficiency of that DM. So I that person sends on daily basis at least 7, 8, 9, 12 DMs, and in almost a year, I only probably I mean onboard from that DMs less than 5 clients. It doesn't bother me necessarily because at least I mean I increase awareness in that online space.
Yeah.
But since even today, the vast majority of the people that comes towards me are either old clients or relatives to my old clients that with whom I did a great job when I used to work with them. So especially those who already know me still comes to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel frustrated a little bit, and I related a lot with your message.
Yeah. Well, that's why I kind of wanted to put the message out, I think, mostly because that's exactly the same thing I experienced. As you'll know, obviously, Radu, like a lot of the coaches that I work with are people that have interacted with us at some point, whether that's been through other services or whether it's been through a relationship that's been built over time, right? A lot of you guys on this call, right, whether you work with me now or don't work with me, have hopefully received some value of mine at some point in the past, right? That's why we interact and engage together, right? At no point have I cold DM'd any of you or reached out to any of you with just a generic message, right? And it's not inherently that generic message is a problem, actually. It is a gateway potentially to building a relationship. I think, unfortunately, we're just living in an era where most people would interpret that message as a generic message. And sometimes you can turn a prospective lead into a colder lead. No one talks about it working the other way around. But actually, as soon as I receive a message that I know is very generalized, I literally got one the other day that said, "Hi, name," and they'd not even bothered to replace the template with my actual name. Phenomenal. Excellent. Definitely don't do that. But no one talks about the fact that that opening line or that opening conversation, if it is generic, can make someone colder, not warmer, right? Because we live in an era where everyone's getting inundated all the time now. I think Instagram's just updated something where you can set a templated message for everyone that follows you now to receive an automated message, right? I just don't believe in that level of automation. Don't get me wrong, if there's like a lead magnet or something someone can opt into, like automations are helpful in that regard. But to automate like an immediate message, who the fuck's going to respond to that, right? If you followed someone and immediately received an automated message, you ain't going to respond to that. And that's how that's all I think in marketing is if I wouldn't respond to it, why would I set it up for myself, right? Why am I crossing my wires on that side of things? So that's exactly why I put out the thing about lead efficiency, Radu, is like, how can we capitalize on what's working more and stop spending so much time on the generic advice we receive, which inherently doesn't work, right? Because I'm the same. I've been part of mentorships where I've been told to do X, Y, Z, and I have done those things. And actually, all the returns I've seen from my business growth have actually been this other thing I've been doing on the side and not their advice. And it's like, rather than translate that success to them, I just zoomed out for a second and I was like, hold on, the stuff that I'm doing by myself is the thing that's actually working here. So why would I not just capitalize on that as much as I can? And for me, that was always talking to you guys, giving value, offering my time where I can offer my time, helping out where I can help out, providing education because I just love educating anyway. That was all right for me. And that's exactly what we do now to build our business.
So would you still kind of DM someone who sent you a friend request, was welcoming on your page, or you don't even bother to DM and say, "Hey, Radu, thanks for following me"? I mean,
I do not thank a single person for following me.
Okay.
Don't even, because I honestly don't care if they follow me. No offense to any of you guys.
Okay, so my next goal is to start creating newsletters because I feel more connected with kind of long format content. I mean, 1 minute, 1 minute and a half reel on Instagram most of the time is kind of superficial, and I relate more with kind of emails, newsletters where I can truly share my thoughts, a lot of example, and helping people, I think, better. That's my next step from my,
Yeah.
let's say, marketing perspective.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. I know something that was quite popular as a comment off the back of the lead gen webinar we did was people saying like, oh, maybe I should put a bit more emphasis on emails. Like that was a huge bit of feedback we got. And it's the same concept, right? Like an email or something that you can put out regularly that doesn't feel like it's trying to play an algorithm. It doesn't feel like it's trying to play the game, as it were. Like it is simply a sharing of your thoughts and stuff. I totally agree. That's how I found really quite consistency in my email marketing recently, is like Instagram is all algorithmic, right? And especially with the SEO stuff they've built in. So hashtags aren't really a thing anymore, but what you put in your caption matters for the algorithm. So it's still quite algorithmic, which means you have to play a game. Emails, there's no game, right? People either opt in, which means they're interested in hearing what you have to say. And the nicest thing about emails is you put out an email, it lands in 100% of the email inboxes that have registered to you. Whereas if someone follows you on Instagram, there's like a 10% chance they'll actually see your post, right? Because Instagram determines whether they're going to see your stuff or not. Yeah, so I am a big fan of emails. Don't get me wrong, you have to use usually social media to build your email list. There has to be a drip feed. But I think it's a really good way of solidifying the relationship. So yeah, for sure, Radu, I think that's going to be useful. That essentially becomes the efficiency part. So rather than trying to sell to however many hundreds or thousands that you have on Instagram, you end up with a really small but strong following in your emails that is a percentage of that following. So if you have hypothetically 1,000 people that follow you on Instagram and you've got 100 emails, the 100 emails are much warmer leads because they've opted into hearing more from you, right? So they are going to be the people that you are going to sell to more frequently. The second thing on top of that, which we said in the lead gen webinar, is people are so familiar with receiving offers in your email inbox that you can put out offers all the fucking time and not push people away because it's just super normal, right? The amount of emails I've received just today about offers, sales, we've got a sale on, I don't unsubscribe from any of those things because it's just normal to me. But if I follow someone on Instagram and they're like, I'm selling this, eventually I'd be like, this is boring now, I'm going to unfollow them, right? So if we're looking at where we can really push our offers more consistently, emails are going to be the one for sure. Yeah, I like it.
Thank you very much.
Cool. I like it.
But the CC build method apparently still works on that volume.
It works. Look, it does work. It does work. And I won't sit here and slag any business mentorship. You know, I've been a part of 3 now, and they've all had very specific ways of operating. And ultimately, it does work because you have high performers in that community. So it's really about assessing, are they telling me to do things that I feel comfortable and happy doing that work for me? And if it does, great. If it doesn't, that's where you just have to reassess. And that's the main thing. And for me, I just found a way that I preferred doing, and that's why as well I wanted to put the webinar out, is just because hopefully it just helps anyone that feels like it has to be a certain way. It doesn't. Like, you can run your business however you want to run your business, right? That's the biggest takeaway, I think. Hayden, I find online much harder, more demanding. PT was easy in comparison, just a lot of hours away from home. Exactly. So usually we tend to see that when you've got less responsibilities, maybe you've got a relationship but not a family that you've started. PT is a very, you know, predominant career for a lot of people. And then as soon as people start having kids and stuff, they start reassessing like how they want to spend their time, where they want to spend their time and stuff. So we do tend to see that is like parents tend to try and push online a little bit more. But I do resonate with that. Timo, 99% of trainers don't need a setter, in my opinion. I never hired a setter. I was always advised to hire a setter because I refused to do a lot of the stuff that they told me to do. And I do resonate with that as well. Like, if you were to get a setter, like, because I have known it to work for certain people, there has to be such a clear message, I think, and such a really strong brand identity, that setter has a very clear script on how they're going to interact and talk with the potential clients. I would definitely agree with that. There's actually a lad, I've got a discovery call with a lad on Monday, and he's got such a good niche. It's such a cool niche, but he basically he niches down on like Warhammer stuff. If anyone's heard of like the Warhammer stuff, which is like the little models that you paint. But he niches down on that, and it's such a solid niche, and is so consistent. And you might think like, you know, that's a bit obscure, like that's a really small niche. He's got like 90 plus clients and a coach that works under him, right? He's clearly niched down incredibly well. So for him, a setter might actually be quite useful because he's found such a strong brand identity. But for a lot of coaches, when it ends up being quite vast and obscure in the messaging, yeah, I would agree that setter is maybe not the most important thing. We should take on an email lead magnet. For example, James Smith talks about 30 tips on X in 30 days. Yeah, I mean, all of these kinds of things work. The 30 and 30 can work really well from a volume standpoint as well, because they do say like, before you worry about something being perfect, you just need to put it out very consistently. So like a 30 and 30 works really well for that, because you essentially have 30 emails where you can slowly assess the volume of stuff like that. The really nice thing I like about the analytics on emails is you can literally see who's opened it and who's clicked any buttons that you put in there, right? So you can see straight away, if we use that same analogy we used earlier about the 100 email list that you've got, from those 100, you can see how many have opened it. So maybe 40 have opened it. And of those 40, how many have clicked a button? So if you send out a training, for example, with a link or a button, you will see who's clicked that button. And then they become the really warm leads, the people that are really engaged and interacting with your stuff, right? So for you guys, for example, in my email list, if any of you joined from my email list, I'll know that you're part of the clickers, right? So you are my strongest leads if I was to ever sell. The issue and the one caveat to this is business related, not coaching related, right? So, and I'm not offering any business services. So actually it's data that I don't even need to pay attention to really. But if, let's say this was a call about a problem you were struggling with coaching related that would fit within our company, then that would make you our strongest leads. Yeah. And we would try and push sales a little bit more on you. We're not going to try and sell the person that's just followed me on Instagram, because they are obviously not the strongest lead, right? I need that person to slowly drip feed into everything else I'm doing, from the free course stuff to any lead magnet stuff, etc. Yeah. But yeah, any lead magnet really, I think is fantastic. I think you should do a range as well. I think you should try ebooks, videos, mini courses, and see which is most popularized for you. Because I did my email list was built all from, well, predominantly from the photo shoot ebook we did, and that was like 2 years ago. That was quite a long time ago, and that was really, really popular. But then we did this mini course for the productivity stuff, and that was also really popular. So I wouldn't say do one type of lead magnet. I would say try a couple and see what people resonate with. Because what you'll find is like people that don't read are never going to download an ebook. And if they do, they're never going to read it. Right. But some people might opt in for like video sequences. So you're just hitting different learning types by offering a range of things as well, which is nice. Radu, you could drop any questions, by the way, guys, in the chat box if I say anything. I should have someone who sends DM based on my scripts. That's cool. Always me who takes control once the leads are becoming hot. Okay, nice. I have a lot of email addresses from questionnaires in Google Form. Cool. Yeah. And honestly, like you can really refine that. So obviously with email lists, you can add tags. So you can tag people that have either opted in for certain things, or you could add tags based on like old clients. And literally maybe once every 3 months, you send out a unique offer just to your old clients. Especially if that's quite a popular, if that's a popular prospect for you, Radu. So if you get a lot of old clients that come to you, maybe you could just prompt that a bit more consistently by having their emails tagged as old clients. And then once every quarter, you send out a unique offer to those guys just to get them re-engaged. That's sometimes all you need to do, right? I used to be of the mindset that outreach was just like this thing I didn't resonate with at all. Outreach is just really specific, right? So the lad that I've got a call with on Monday, he was outreach based, right? Because I'd put my offer out to emails and some close friends stuff, and there wasn't really any takers on the offer. So I was like, okay, how can I get people more engaged in this without changing the offer necessarily? And I know he's just a busy guy. So I messaged him because we'd previously talked about some form of coaching, and he was very much like, later, later. So I messaged him. I was like, hey, dude, just to let you know, I know you've mentioned in the past that you want to do a photo shoot. We've currently got an offer running, blah, 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 blah. And that's how we got the call booked for Monday. So there is going to be moments and times where we do outreach, right? I don't want you guys to think I'm like anti-outreach and I never DM people, right? It's just that we outreach very specifically based on who we know is going to resonate with the offer that we're putting out and who would benefit from that to save a little bit of cash, right? We just do it basically on the people that we know we can genuinely help. It's a genuine outreach message, right? We're not going to outreach everybody all the time because that's just really inefficient. And that's why you guys end up probably, if you have done that anyway, that's why you end up feeling quite despondent with outreach, is because you're trying to outreach everyone all the time, right? And it feels like this really heavy weight that you're trying to manage. You don't want to do that. You want to just outreach to the people you think are most relevant. So going back to Radu's question about like, do you message everyone that follows? No. What we do is anyone that no worries, Ben. Anyone that follows that I know is the perfect demographic for us, I'll follow back. And then eventually I'll just engage with their content. If they put out something that I'm like, oh yeah, that's quite good actually, I'll just respond to their story. Or they might respond to my story and I put something stupid up about fajitas or whatever. Like it just starts very organically, very normal. And then from there we start to layer in and build a relationship, right? But we talked about it on the lead gen webinar, the stages of awareness. Yeah. So they are problem unaware, then they become problem aware, then they become solution aware, product aware, most aware, right? In those stages of awareness, where do we sell? It's in the later stages, right? So all of this in the early days is just value, relationship building, helping that person as much as you can for free. I'm not getting paid for being on this call today for you guys, right? It's just because I actually give a shit, right? So if you're like me and you give a shit about helping people, you'll just give your time away. And the great thing about that is if you are struggling to build your business, you probably have lots of time to give away. So give it away, right? If you're not struggling to build your business, well, you don't have to worry about that because you're not struggling to build your business, right? So it organically flows that way. When we go through quieter periods, I'll offer more of my time for free. And then when we go through busy periods, I'm not going to go and offer my time for free because I'm busy. I've got, other stuff to do. And that's just the way business flows, I think. What did you learn from Mark Strathen as you consider to be the 3 top tips on marketing? That's a good question. The stage of awareness was one, right? So when to sell, when to not sell. I already knew that, but I didn't have a model. And I think I needed the framework to really understand it. I think another is making offers, like constantly making offers, but not those offers don't have to be selling your services. So an offer could be a lead magnet. It's just an offer for helping someone, right? So we run offers all the time now. So on an individual basis, we're always running like what we call behind the curtains offers, or what they call behind the curtains offers, which is like if I'm talking to someone and they're struggling with something, I'll be like, have I got something that could help this person? Right. And then I'll just give them as much as I can for free. It doesn't even have to be a lead magnet. As a lot of you guys will know, like we've run education calls for the community now for years. So I've got literally hundreds of videos unlisted on YouTube that probably cover most of the topics that a coach would struggle with. So we just offer videos based on what could help someone out. And again, the offer isn't to sell, the offer is just to help someone. Because the more you can build reciprocal equity, which is you've helped that person so much that they feel like they want to pay you, that's going to be when you're finding it easiest to sell anyway. So then you don't have to jump on a sales call and really worry about your skills, right? You jump on a sales call and that person wants to buy your services, right? That's kind of the territory we want to be in. So that was huge, like make offers, but it doesn't have to be selling offers, just make offers. And then the last bit would probably be content related. A lot of my content was very, how would I describe it? A lot of my content was, I think, used to be quite superficial. So I would just talk about random things, whether it was stuff that would make me look smart or whether it was stuff that I thought that coaches would want to see more of. So, I'd hire a videographer and start talking about getting stupid stuff like, I don't know, like optimizing training for XYZ and blah, blah, blah. That's not going to convert people. That's not going to make people go like, oh yeah, I really want to work with that person. Essentially, you're just trying to become a secondary version of a Ben Yanes or a hypertrophy coach. Like, but how many people actually coach with those people? They don't, right? So why would you try and replicate their brand, right? So instead, I literally just had a document where I wrote down who I serve, what are the 3 main things they want to achieve with us, and what are all the problems they face that stop them achieving that thing. And that is basically the majority of our content now, right? So all our content will feel quite like on the nose. Sometimes it feels a little bit deep as well, but the thing we're getting feedback a lot from people is it feels like the stuff you put out like speaks directly to me. And that's the stuff we hear a lot more now because our content is really thought out to the problems that you guys would face, not, oh, I'm going to post about exercise mechanics. Like, I don't need to post about that shit. People know that I know about exercise mechanics. I don't need to post that on my social media, right? So that I would say is probably another one that I took away.
Thank you very much, Jack. Just one more thing. So, right after I read that email, it was kind of such a stress release thing. So, the second after, I felt more free, without pressure, because I was parties that I always consuming Mark Cole's content, which is helped me a lot. Don't get me wrong, but once I, you know, switch and kind of little bit and read another perspective, it's just a second right after I felt much, much, much,
Yeah.
and I also was aware about that what you call that awareness stages, but
Mm.
the fact that you remind about it, it reconnect the wires, and suddenly it make it a lot more sense and put the things in a different perspective.
Mm.
And I feel much better since that day, sincerely.
Ah, that's cool. That's cool, man. I like that. It's yeah, it was a huge takeaway for us as well. Like, and all literally all credit to the Built for Coach guys. Like they, because they approach marketing from a psychology perspective, that's what resonates massively with me. Like if I can understand the principles behind marketing psychology, then I can do what I need to do with that stuff. So again, to like give you guys an example, a few of you guys will have seen this kind of thing before because we've run through it. But like in our Monday.com, for example, our social media planner is basically built on the stages of awareness, right? So when we're writing posts out or post ideas, it's always going to be like, what stage of awareness are we hitting with this? And being very aware that we're not just constantly pushing product aware stuff. So product aware stuff would feel very silly all the time, where it's talking about our business and our results all the time. And that's another thing I used to do a hell of a lot, is I used to just put out results, testimonials, and then talk about our coaching. So it was all product aware shit. Now, the issue with that is you're not nurturing people through those stages of awareness. So we make sure we write stuff that's like problem aware, solution aware, etc. in our copy. And that really helps. Honestly, it helps with it helps with the messaging and making sure we're not going too far on one end of the spectrum or the other. So yeah, that's how we write out content now, and that massively, honestly, that massively helps. So what do we put out? Today we put out like a running two businesses without burning out post. It was very problem aware. So that's going to be for people that are like, they're aware they're burning out, but they have no idea how to navigate that, right? So they're not solution aware. Solution aware would be like someone that knows should be doing, but isn't doing it, right? That's solution aware. So it's slightly different messaging. Now, there's lots of things that fit into each of these, and you can express that however you want to express it. We did this carousel today literally on mostly the office memes. But that's where our brand identity fits back in. So it's like we're talking about this specific problem, but we're talking about it in a way that resonates with a specific type of person. This time it would be the people that watch The Office and like memes, right? Because I like memes, I like GIFs. If anyone's part of our email list, you'll know I put a GIF at the end of every single one of our emails. And the reason I do that is because I want people that have actually a fucking laugh and don't take themselves too seriously all the time, right? Like, so there's little things that we feed in that's very true to us, but the messaging is still the same. And that, yeah, like I said, that massively helps with the awareness stuff. So I'm glad that was helpful, man. Jay, I predominantly do in-person PT. Just joined an independent gym from a health club. A few clients have come with me. That's cool. I also have a full-time job, so PT is part-time gig at the moment. I want my business to feel like a business, but going forward, what would you focus on in priority order? Obviously, it all depends on the person. Very true. But what would you say is the most important to focus on actually feeling like you're building a business? I would say the first thing is treating it like a business. So making sure you pay yourself a wage from the company, but you preserve a bolus of cash in the company to reinvest. That is like absolute number one financial management, because when we're talking about not just managing a business, but managing finances, the thing that will detract a lot from you being able to run a business is, like we said, scarcity and fear. So if you're not managing money effectively, that will be a big problem later down the line. So that's one component, is just running your business as a business and treating it very seriously in that regard. From a PT perspective, a lot of it is going to be, if you pay attention to, so I don't know if the independent gym you're a part of is as busy as the health club was, but if you pay attention to the busier coaches around you, something that you'll notice is it's not always the smartest coaches that are the busiest. It's the coaches that are very good with people, right? That is fundamentally the most important thing. It's not the most important thing for results, like you need to know what you're doing, obviously. But to build a business on a gym floor, in my opinion, to be a busy personal trainer, you need to be good with people, because the better you are with people, the more they will want to spend time around you and that really helps build a business. It's not the first gym I worked in. The second gym I worked in was a Virgin Active, and at one point there was 18 coaches on the gym floor. So wasn't inherently competitive, which is quite weird to say. I think it was just because the member base was huge, but of those 18 coaches, there was one coach particularly that always just trounced everyone else in sessions, like the amount of sessions he ran. And he was not the smartest coach, but he was just so nice. He was so good to be around. He was always a laugh. Like in the back of my head, I was resentful of the fact he was so busy, but I still couldn't help but like him. Like he was just so likable, right? That is what built his business. From there, any of the cash he was making, he didn't, but he could have invested in his education and all these other things. And that becomes the thing that allows him to get such good results. That never happened. So fortunately for him, unfortunately for his clients, he retained a lot of his clients for a long time because he was so good with people. He never produced like great results, right? So I would say that's going to be then the next step. So it's be great with people, reinvest in your education so you understand how to get great results, and then just keep recycling that until you slowly work to a higher and higher level, right? The nice thing about producing client results, and Luke, I think we spoke about this on the TCI live day, maybe, where when you get a great result and you put it out into the world, it draws and attracts a new type of client in, not necessarily new, but it draws more clients in, right? That inherently is what we should be focused on, because the type of client that's drawn to you then wants that caliber of result. I remember at M10, the first result I produced with those guys, I then got another client that came into M10 and was like, I want that kind of result. And that spirals, and eventually it just kind of layers on top of itself until you're coaching a higher and higher caliber of client. And it's not the caliber of client necessarily that doesn't still have problems. I coach coaches, and coaches still have problems because they're human beings, but their potential to get phenomenal results is just a little bit higher, right? Because they have more training experience, they have more interest in learning and things like that. So yeah, that's the order in my head that I would see it. Great with people, be a people person as much as you can. Reinvest in your education so you get fantastic results. Rotate and keep pushing fantastic results until you're working with a higher and higher caliber of client. That's literally it, in my opinion. And just make sure you're not spending all your money. Just keep a little back for the tax man.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Jack.
No worries, man. No worries. Cool. There is a really great analogy. It's one of the good things that I actually took from Stephen Bartlett. But he has a really good analogy of like filling buckets, and it's like the career ladder almost. I don't know if you've heard of it. But he talks about it's like knowledge, then skills, then people, then resources, then reputation. And you have to fill the buckets in that order. And that's how you end up creating not just a brand, but like a career that's really strong. And the issue we have in our industry now is coaches care more about looking good than actually being good. So coaches try and do this where they fill the reputation bucket first. It's like coaches are trying to become mentors now when they've been coaching for like a year. It's fucking ridiculous. It's actually ridiculous. I never wanted to be a mentor. Like that was just something that naturally happened in the trajectory of my career, right? But the first bucket I filled was knowledge, and then it was skills. So it was like learn how to get results, and then actually apply that stuff to get results. And then it was people. So I surrounded myself with better and better quality people just because it naturally raises your standard quite nicely. Then it was resources. So it was becoming more resourceful with what I had available to me, leveraging more collaboration, being surrounded by the right people, that kind of stuff. And all the reputation stuff is just a byproduct. Like, I don't put myself out there trying to be the flashiest person. Like I'll always try and be as genuine as I can. But the reputation just comes as a byproduct of all the other four. So that's often how it works quite nicely. And I really like that analogy because it gives me like a visual thing to follow. Cool. In every gym you find that kind of coach. My conclusion is that a lot of people are not in the gym for real change. This is true. Some people, a lot of commercial gyms are just built on ghost members, right? Members that pay their subscription but never go. My brother famously paid his gym membership for like 2 years and never went, right? Like the gym makes its money from people like that. However, we're not focused on those people, right? We're always focused on the small minorities that will make change. And the nice thing is, like, I think change inspires change quite often because people are so comparative. So the more people or the more clients you have that are changing, the more it inspires change in those kind of around them as well, I think, as like a bit of a byproduct, which is quite nice. Timo, do I mind diving a little deeper into that content planner? That's absolutely fine, mate. Is there anything specific that would be helpful to you?
Well, I think that for me, I'm in the situation that I'm just kind of content burned out, so to speak, right? I'm like I've tried in my idea everything, and the type of content like we spoke about last time in our call, the type of content I put out is not resonating with who I am as a coach. I'm trying to play the social media game. I don't know, maybe people resonate with this. I do find this interesting. The thing like, all right, how do you come up with let's say 3 or 4 problem aware, 3 or 4 product aware posts, and how do you basically plan it in your week? Is there a certain thought process behind it, certain strategy behind it?
Yes. Okay, cool. So essentially what we write down is 3 main desires of our clients. So for my clients, there's probably a few more than 3, but it's going to be things like how to actually be a leader for their clients. I think that's something that a lot of coaches resonate with. And a lot of coaches think, well, I need to be in shape to be a leader and those kinds of things. But that's actually what they're seeking. They're seeking like leadership because they've never actually been taught real leadership. I think a lot of coaches reach out to me specifically for time and energy management stuff. They struggle with not just burnout, but feeling chaotic in their lifestyle and just don't really know how to regain control. They want to know what it takes to achieve body transformation results with themselves or their clients. So either they've not done a transformation or they're really wanting to get transformation with their clients, but they just feel like they keep falling short. And then finally, like just in general, the coaching journey, right? So like we just said with Jay, there's going to be coaches that come to me and they say like, what do you recommend I should do from a trajectory standpoint? Right. So all I've done to compile that list is I've paid attention to the things that people have said to me before they started working with me. Right. So if you think about anyone you've chatted with, sorry, if you think about any of the clients you've signed up recently or fairly recently, look at the conversation you had just before they signed up with you. What were they saying to you? Right? What were the kinds of things they were asking for or asking about or saying they were struggling with? That becomes like the desire list for you, right? So this is literally stuff you can very easily kind of research because it'll be in your history of conversation. And then we build on that. And the more in depth you can go on this, the better. So again, this is a document that was shared to me by Mark Schraven. So all credit to him here. This isn't something I created. But when you're niching down, you really want to get into the psychology of the person. So what's their persona? What are the types of goals they seek? What are the pain points they're dealing with? So for you guys, it'll be things like becoming a martyr to your business, emotionally eating because you're highly stressed and out of control, falling out of love with training, right? They're the struggles that you face. So you're writing down the pain points of your ideal client. One important caveat on this, because I spoke to one of my clients about this recently, is he ended up writing this kind of thing down for his demographic based on his current clients. But then he turned around later and was like, well, I'm not working with my ideal client base. I'm working with clients that aren't sticking to plan and aren't adhering. And he was working with nightmare clients. So don't write a list like this for nightmare clients. It makes no sense because you're only going to attract more nightmare clients. So we redesigned this list based off his ideal demographic. So cost to that. So what is the cost to all these pain points? Your business suffers, you run out of steam and motivation, your health, energy, and physique deteriorates, blah, blah, blah. Social personality profile, challenges, problems they tend to face. What's the offer we offer? And then even deeper into that. So top 1 to 3 outcomes, characteristics of people we work. This is really good to do, by the way. Characteristics of people we work with and characteristics of people we refuse to work with is really, really good because again, it strengthens your brand identity. Challenges that they face, most spoken about, and the 10 problems that influence each of the 5 challenges. So we end up with a list that's like it's quite a long list of stuff and information about our ideal target market. But then all of this feeds into the tonality of our content. It feeds into the messaging of our content, that kind of stuff. So I could easily do a post that's like, here's 5 characteristics of clients we refuse to work with. And I could just take 5 of these. Or I could do content that's like, have you never invested in your own coach before? Here's the cost of doing that, right? So all the messaging and all the content is related to the problems that you guys face and like the undertones of those problems, rather than here's a program on how to build muscle tissue, right? Like there's just 2 totally different tones to that messaging. When someone's like, so let's say someone's thinking about coaching, are they going to be drawn towards the person that can pinpoint exactly what they're struggling with, where they read it and they go, fucking hell, like he's just nailed me to a T there? Or are they going to see the person that's put out a thing that's like, here's a program on hypertrophy? Do you think who they're going to coach with, right? It's probably going to be the person that they feel can empathize with them the best. So yeah, that's how we built ours. So all of this then feeds into how I then write out on the social media planner. So I just kind of usually just write some ideas down. Some of it is actually also based on like education that I do for the team. And the nicest thing about that is it often builds into lead magnets and stuff. So I can always say on, let's say I do a post on hustle mentality. We did a call on that not like 2 weeks back. So I can always say to anyone that messages me off the back of that content that says like, oh, this was a great post, or I really resonated with this post, is I could always say to them, oh, well, we actually did a webinar on it like 2 weeks ago, if you'd like that. So there's that kind of that feeds in as well. So again, I don't know if that helps. I appreciate I ran through that really quickly, but the more time you can sit down and really think about this and who you're serving and all the details around their personal problems and what they struggle with, that then becomes your messaging in your content. Yeah. So then your problem aware stuff. So problem aware, the difference would be, so let's say, problem aware would be this stuff. So it might be they struggle. Let's take a more obvious one. All right. So the problem aware is that they're not achieving great results with their clients, right? That's problem aware. They know that they're not achieving great results with their clients. Solution aware is that they know they're not achieving great results with their clients because they lack the knowledge, but they're not investing in the knowledge. That would be solution aware. They know what the solution is. They need to become more knowledgeable, but they're just not acting on it. Product aware would be, I know that JHVC provides the knowledge to achieve better results with my clients. And then most aware would be, they know how we deliver that to our clients. So they don't just know that we provide that, but they know exactly how we provide that. That would be most aware. And when someone's like most aware of your brand, they almost know what you do, regardless of how much you talk about it. They know what you do and how you think. Those guys are, and the fact they stick around you, they are most likely to invest in your business.
Got it. One quick question, if you may. Can you just do a really quick one in terms of just pops into your head on, for example, a personal trainer or an online coach, in terms of how would that look, problem aware, product aware, solution aware, just to give me a better image? I get what you're trying to say, but I mean, you coach coaches, so what would you see in terms of your clients, misinterpretation of this model would be? That makes sense?
So are you talking now about a Gen Pop demographic?
For example, yeah, just. I mean, I understand that everybody's target audience is different, but just to see, like, all right, when we take the most generic example of a post that triggers problem aware, for example.
Okay, so a post that triggers problem aware. So let's say, so I did this. I'm going to give you this example because I actually had a client sign up with me. And when I asked why they signed up, they specifically said there was a post they saw that triggered it for them. So I know that this worked for them. So it's perhaps a good example to use. So we used an example of lack of structure being the problem, right? But the real problem was, and the way we phrased it was being intuitive isn't working for you. Right. That's how we phrased it. Because that's what coaches, that's how coaches would describe it. I'm being a little bit intuitive with it. I'm not measuring and data managing, but like we're kind of just managing things. You're not, because your training sucks. You're not making any progress. Your nutrition sucks, and you feel embarrassed about the fact you're emotionally eating. So we're touching on these points, but we phrase it, and this becomes like the key message is that being intuitive isn't working for you. That's a problem-aware post, right? So they see that and they go, I know it's not working for me. And then you take them on the next journey. So you can't just highlight a problem and be like, oh, by the way, this sucks for you. Being intuitive doesn't work for you. It's not like a commentary from the outside. You then need to take someone on a journey. So why does it not work for them? That becomes part of the caption. Yeah. So in the caption, you're going to explain why it doesn't work. Well, in a coaching process, you collect a lot of data and you interpret that data because you find what works and what doesn't work. When you're being intuitive, there is no data. So you feel chaotic because you can't see what's going on. Okay. Well, what do you recommend then? What's the next step? Data collection, right? You need to be collecting at least some data, whether that's logbooking, whether it's consistency with your training. And the funny thing is, when you say about the what's, they'll go, "Oh, well, I'm not doing that, and I can't be asked doing that." Yeah. And that goes into the solution aware. Because do you remember when we said solution aware, we said they know what they need to do, but they just don't do it. Yeah. So that becomes the solution aware, because you're like, well, you need to data collect and you need to be logbooking and you need to write yourself a program you can consistently do. And they turn around and they're like, yeah, I don't have it in me to do that. So then you go and make an offer at the end. If this is something you struggle with and you need support with, then we're currently taking on board clients. Essentially, you're going through that journey of, we understand what problem you're dealing with. Here's how to solve it. By the way, if you're struggling to solve it on your own, that's why we exist. Yeah. So that's a journey from problem aware. Now, this doesn't have to be all in one post. You could do the being intuitive isn't working for you, and then you could do a story in the same day that explains the rest of it. Or you could do a post on being intuitive isn't working for you and explain why. And then the next day, you explain why data collection is so important and blah, blah, blah. So you might split it up. But that's the kind of journey you're taking them on, right? Rather than saying, so like a superficial example of that would be, we collect data with our clients. Client doesn't give a shit, right? That prospect does not care whether you collect data with your clients, right? With our clients. So you can say that, and that's fine. That's a product aware post. But do you see how that product aware post isn't hitting their problem aware stage that they're at? So it's not helpful. We're trying to hit them in this particular example with this particular client. We're trying to hit them here first, the problem aware stage, because that's where they're currently at, right? They don't know yet that they need a service that collects data, right? So both are useful, but this is how we're going to change the language, even though the messaging's somewhat similar, because one they're going to see and be like, oh, that's me. And one they're going to see and be like, okay, I don't really care. Does that make sense? Yeah. Cool. So yeah, I thought that would be a good example just because we literally had a client sign up because of that. But that's how our messaging has changed recently. So we're just thinking a little bit more about each stage of that problem aware. What is the problem they're dealing with? Well, they're trying to be intuitive and they're struggling. Okay, so being intuitive isn't working for you. That becomes the message. And it doesn't mean that this is a wrong message. It just means that this is product aware. So you're talking about your service. You're talking about the deliverables, right? So the only people that's going to resonate with are the product aware people. Yeah. Whereas this is problem aware, which resonates with the problem aware people. Yeah. And there's other examples you can use. You can find problem-aware stuff where you have a lead magnet that fills that need. You know, you might find that there is a solution-aware post that you can do that you have a lead magnet that fills that need. So again, today we put out a post. We've put out the post on how I run 2 businesses without burning out, right? That's, you know, that's somewhat kind of solution aware. It's a little bit problem aware, but it's a little bit solution aware as well, because you're essentially saying all the things that they kind of should be doing or thinking. But then we feed that with a lead magnet as well, and that is the Ultimate Work Week that we have in school. And it's just a simple comment the word Ultimate Work Week, and you know, we'll send you the mini course. And we got 2 people that did that, right? So that's 2 new leads that have come in to the ecosystem because they saw a post that resonated with them. Yeah. But we'll do that consistently with different language. We'll find different ways to phrase it until there's something that hits and is more popular. And then it's like, that's the language we need to be speaking because that's what resonates with people. So yeah, we're interpreting the feedback as well. Cool. Okay, let me just dive into the chat box. Can I share a copy of this? Sorry, Ryan, that was a little bit of time ago, so I don't know which bit you're asking.
It was the document with I think your avatars, like pain points, challenges, etc. Just
Gotcha.
curious with the questions.
Gotcha. I can't technically because it's, you know, it's part of my business coaching, so it would be like me giving away his intellectual property. But what I will say is this recording will literally be going out, so you can literally just pause the recording and just find those questions.
Perfect. Thank you.
No worries. Radu, I can see on a daily basis people who invest in coaches that don't have a results portfolio near the capacity to achieve results with Jump Up. Yeah, 1000%. And that's just because they're good peoples as well, right? There's the component here of I see some coaches that get ridiculously good results, but I would never work with them because I think they're a prick, right? So there has to be that component of likability. And I'm not saying you need to be likable to everyone. You should be repelling the wrong people as well. But your personality profile will also attract and project people away. You know, that's always going to be the case, I think. And that's okay. You know, just be authentic. The easiest thing you can do is be authentic. Be true to yourself. Otherwise, you get pretty exhausted trying to pretend to be someone else. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jack. Actually, I do have one more question for you. So, when you choose a topic to present, to debate on your weekly coaching calls, and I suppose that you have clients that are training with you for 6, 8, even more months, and clients that are training with you for 6, 4 weeks. How do you handle, I mean, and manage the topic selection to I mean, to be interesting for both parties? Because well, I sometimes wonder how can I, because I always ask my clients in the questionnaires, the weekly check-in, if there is a topic, specific topic that they would like to debate on during the weekly calls.
Yes.
And well, when they don't, I mean, don't precise something, I choose my topic. But as I have people that are training me for 6, even more months, and people that are, I sometimes find a little bit hard to choose the right topic for the majority.
Completely right. So it's funny because I spoke to Alana about this yesterday. So we did a topic. We did a topic yesterday that I think was really important to go through, which was overcoming perfectionism. And the reason that I chose that, no one requested that. I obviously do the same as you, right? Where we ask in the check-ins, like, is there any topics you would like to see? And no one requested that, but it's a consistent theme I've seen recently in the way some coaches have been talking. So I thought it was necessary to go through. And me and Alana were talking about it yesterday because you'll get three camps of clients, and this, in my opinion, this will always be the same. The clients that attend that are like, oh, fuck, like this is really insightful. I'm going to make some notes like, oh, that's a really good point, and they'll engage. Clients that sit there that just cannot resonate with the thing you're talking about, which is absolutely fine. In reality, they probably just shouldn't be there, but they're just not connecting with the thing you're talking. There's always going to be those clients. And then there's also going to be clients that, and this kind, I guess this is two types of clients. There's going to be the clients that sit there and like they're not fully engaged. In reality, they should be engaged because that's the exact problem that they struggle with. Or you get the client that is engaged and they're like, they message you afterwards, and we actually had this. They message you afterwards and they're like, oh, that was a great call, super insightful. And in the back of your head, you're like, well, yeah, but I've been telling you that same thing for the past 8 fucking weeks and you've not listened to me. Like, it's great that you heard it on this call, but I've been saying the same fucking thing to you for like the last 2 months. There's always going to be those types of clients, right? So I wouldn't worry about delivering everything to everyone all the time because you are going to have people at different stages of their journey. What I would do is I would just preface the call. So whether that's before the call, so at the start of the day, you might message in the group and say, here's what today's call is going to be about. Here's what problem it's going to solve, so that a client can determine whether they need to be on the call or not. Or you say at the start of the presentation, this is the specific problem we're solving today, just so they can go, okay, I'm going to mentally check out because that's not a problem I deal with. That's how I kind of deal with those kind of moments now, is just a preface.
What I recently did, I kind of, let's say, sign a partnership with a mindset coach that will twice a month will I mean not take control, but they intervene in our weekly calls, and
Cool.
she is a woman. She will approach especially the topics related with on mindset, psychology, behaviors, because she told me, and I think that if I do approach those topics, since I'm kind of more credited, chances are that people will receive in a different mode the message. And it will be an experiment, and I will still continue to do the weekly calls, but more on trainings and nutrition and everything that touch behaviors and mindset and I mean psychology. It will be that person that will present and lead the calls.
Yeah,
It's an
yeah.
experiment. I don't know how it will work.
I think that's a great test to do for sure, because you're right. Like some people will just need to hear it from somebody else's mouth, or it's the same way when we try and coach family, it just never ends well. But as soon as someone else gives them the same advice, it's suddenly the most amazing thing in the world. Yeah, I think it's a good idea to trial and just see how it resonates and go from there. That's something that I'm looking to do a little bit more. Some of the feedback we received from clients was just more guest lectures, which is absolutely fine for me because I've been teaching for so long now. They might be quite nice for me to just attend someone else's teaching. So yeah, I think a guest lecture or something where you outsource is not a bad thing at all. I think that's cool. I like it. Awesome. Jay, you have a question?
Yeah, so just going back to the what you touched on about social proof and stuff. So I don't have a boatload of social proof. So I've been a PT for about 3 or 4 years, but I've sort of been from gym to gym. Obviously the health club that I was in for the last 18 months, the type of clients there were very sort of, I don't like to say this because I don't like to be mean, but they were very entitled people. It was a very, memberships were high. With that comes a lot of wealth. With that comes a lot of entitlement. I don't know if you found that throughout your time in the industry, but a lot of them were sort of not sort of welcoming me getting social proof. And a lot of the personal training model there was sort of, I think it was flawed in the sense that, they'd run multiple sort of like like PT offers like free sessions for this, and I just don't think that's not the way I would work, because obviously the longer you personal train someone, the more the results they're going to see. And people would just come in for these sessions and then just have the free sessions and then not do anything else about it.
Yeah.
So I've only really got sort of I'd say one client that's actually gave me full social proof. So what would you would you put it on sort of like the pre-consultation form? So like when someone comes and signs up for your services, would you ask the question there, or would you directly ask them once they've signed up?
Yeah, look, like if you've got a little bit more control over your contracting, you can contract in whatever you like. The thing that I will caveat with is, in my entire career, I've never forced someone to have to agree to any form of marketing. Like, I've had unfortunate situations where I've had some like sick results, but because the client's been like a barrister, they've cared about social image, like public image and stuff like that. So there's always going to be components of that. But as a whole, from layering in expectation, no worries, Imogen. Layering in expectation, I don't think it's bad to mention. Like in the onboarding process, we do use marketing in order, and we try and tell our clients' journey in order to continue building our business and reputation in the area and stuff like that. So if you are okay to, we might include you in certain forms of marketing. You could even have opt-ins and outs for certain things where it's like images, testimonials, etc. Social proof sits in many different areas, right? So you've got testimonials, you've got both written and video testimonials, you've got Google reviews, which are sensationally good for local marketing, by the way. Like Google reviews are very good for personal trainers. Then you've obviously got components of referrals and other things where clients might be more happy to do that kind of stuff. So if we ever get kickback, we don't just go, all right, well, that's marketing out for that client. Instead, we try and lean into, okay, is there any other form of review that you're happy for us to do? So if they don't want to allow any form of photos, could we get a video testimonial, or could we get a written testimonial, or could we get a referral from them, or could we X, Y, Z? So we try and just layer in whatever marketing we can get from that client, especially if it's a really incredible story. Usually what would tend to happen is at the start, they're very unconfident. And as the journey goes on, if they do gain confidence in themselves, they are more than happy to share that journey. If they don't, unfortunately, end in that position, then yeah, there's little leg for you to stand on there. Like it's quite an unfortunate situation, What I will say from an entitlement perspective, and this is something you can leverage, is in reality, all human beings are seeking status, safety, certainty, some form of perhaps wealth, whether that be, relational wealth or fiscal wealth. Like entitled clients are very good to leverage status with. So if you see if you train someone that's entitled and you're like, oh, this person's going to be hard to get to engage, try and leverage the status side of things, where essentially a lot of their health and fitness would regard them as a higher level of status. That's actually how I did the barrister, where he ended up doing a photo shoot with me. He coached with me for 3 years in the end, and he did a photo shoot because he was so status driven. Like his expectations at the start were up here, and over time we leveraged his desire for more status in his social circle to be to become that person, if that makes sense, so that he was well known in his social circle as the one that was in the best shape and stuff like that. So actually entitlement and status kind of sometimes go hand in hand, where you just need to know how to play them a little bit to get them more involved in their own health and fitness, because everybody's driven by different things, right? The person that's not competitive, you're never going to drive status with, because they're just not competitive. But someone that is competitively driven, it's just changing the language and their motivations.
No, cool. Thank you. I'll just give a brief example of one of the clients that I had at the health club. I mean, she was she transitioned from classes and wanted to do sort of like, weightlifting and strength work, and we got her to a really good sort of position. She was really strong. But as soon as I sort of mentioned, I want to document your journey sort of thing. She sort of stepped back a little bit and then never heard from her again. And she was with me for about 4 or 5 months. So it was a decent time together, and it would have been like a decent story, especially for people that do just go to them and do classes and are maybe not so familiar with, the sort of weight training and that sort of stuff. So that was just a bit unfortunate. But like you said, you can't force anyone to sort of opt in, as you say.
Yeah, but at the same time, like that, not every client should respond like that.
Yeah.
Like when we're approaching that conversation of like documenting someone's journey, like I think that's a really nice way to phrase it, to be honest. But you can obviously leverage more of your authority in positions like that as well, to just be like, at the start of the coaching process, you're like, just to let you know, it will feel really uncomfortable, but I highly recommend we should take photos at the start. And the reason for that is because 6 months down the line, everybody wants to see what they used to look like compared to now, right? We can take them. If you don't feel comfortable taking them together, you can take them on your own. Just keep them there. Don't even have to look at them. But in 6 months' time, I guarantee that will be something that you'll want to look back on and just try and leverage that experience, because ultimately it's accurate, right? Like most people's journey tends to go that way, and people always regret not taking those earlier images. So it's just leveraging that experience to make that guidance and advice from the start to layer in that expectation.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Cool. Radu?
I don't know if you still have time, Jack. I just want to share a story with Jay to encourage him. So a year ago, one of my childhood friends approached me and said, Radu, I want to work with you because I saw Tudor's results. Tudor is our common friend, and we made a photo shoot. So, but just from the start, I want to let you know that please, I don't want to appear on social media because I don't have a social media presence. Okay, I said, let's start. The guy had an amazing transformation. He lost over 20 kgs while he was working with me. Meanwhile, her wife also start working with me. We had an amazing transformation, even a photo shoot. But as they're a big family, every time they met in a kids party, someone from there approached me, and I ended with 6 new clients from that family. And they never ever posted something on their social media while they transform their body and their life. But the simple fact that people meet on social events, I don't know, when they go to the hairdresser, and if you have a good transformation, the other people will observe and notice and will ask for it. So yeah, I got frustrated with this pressure of having a social proof, and because they didn't let me to put photos with themselves, even the results was great, but they still human, and they meet they meet around social events, and people will notice, and eventually if you had good results with people, their close will ask about their transformation, and your name will be we I mean the other will be more familiar with you.
Yeah, 1000%.
Yeah.
So no pressure with the social proof. Just have a good results and people will notice.
Yeah, I agree with that. I love that. It's very, very true, right? And it kind of goes back into that service standpoint as well, like being the person that people love to be around. Like they'll just talk about you a lot, right? If you're a fantastic coach in getting results, but the client doesn't think about you at all when they're out of that session, like they're not going to really talk about you. But if they have the most amazing fucking experience with you, they are going to talk about you to other people. And it's just going to be that thing that happens by proxy. So results and service kind of go hand in hand when it comes to those referrals. And a lot of referrals that you get fed through to you are going to be from people just talking about you and talking about the impact you've had on their life and stuff like that. So I would definitely agree with Radu. Like the results you produce are kind of, it's easy to forget that they're existing out there in the world, interacting with other people anyway, right? So as soon as someone goes, fucking hell, you look completely different, they're going to go, oh, thanks, I've been having personal training. Or, oh, thanks, I've been losing weight. And they're like, how have you done that? They'll be like, oh, well, I work with Jay down the road or whatever else. Like it's organic.
Yeah, I think just touching back as well, you said about Google. So I've just actually got myself on Google. So I think I'm going to start pushing people that way because it's not a visual sort of social proof as you will. It's you just write a review. They can put pictures on if they want. But I think, like you said, it's more the I think for me, it's more the experience, people coming to me and talking about having a good experience rather than, you know, obviously results as well. But yeah, just the whole experience of the service and, what I've managed to do for them.
Yeah, 1000%. And the reason I say Google reviews, by the way, is because I then think about, and this is another massive piece of advice I would give to any coach, is stop living in the echo chamber of the fitness industry and start looking at everything else that happens in the world, right? The moment I need to hire a plumber, I Google plumber near me and I choose the one with the highest Google reviews, right? That's time and time again. I mean, I've had so many issues with my house, so I've been reminded of this time and time again, and we forget that in the industry. So then we see a mentor that's like, "You need to be a digital marketer," and you're like, "Oh shit, I need to focus on my Instagram posts." I'm not going on Instagram to find a plumber that's posting really exciting fucking reels. I'm going on Google reviews and being like, who's the highest rated plumber in my area? People will do that for PT all the time. So it's just remembering that, like when we get our head out of the fitness industry for a second and pull ourselves back to how we engage in the real world, we realize some marketing is the simplest stuff. And yeah, like having a solid 25 5-star reviews on Google will do wonders for your business.
Yeah, I agree.
Nice. Epic. Jolly good. All right, we got there. 1 hour and 20. That's not too bad, is it? Not too bad. All right, team. I've recorded today, so what I'll do is I'll send it out to everyone that attended today. And if there are any follow-up questions, obviously, guys, don't hesitate to reach out on whatever platform you want to reach out on. Otherwise, happy building your business. And yeah, I'll speak to you again soon. All right. Ciao, ciao. Thanks, guys.